Welcome to the Valve Studio. Hey, I got a lot of really good responses back from my numerical solver a video that I recorded a couple days ago. First one was from Brian, and he says, you really ought to change the name because there's a trademark problem with naming it CK Solver. So I kind of agree with that. So I'm going to change it to Milo77, who was the inventor Milo, and he came up with the idea in 1977. I'll go ahead and make that change. Kevin, a friend of mine from high school, also chimed in. He says, hey, I love seeing all that vintage test gear. You know, all the analog dials and stuff. So I have a lot of vintage test gear. I don't know why I've been collecting it, mostly because it looks cool. And I decided to go ahead and let's get it out, man. This is the Valve Studio. Let's get out some of my vintage test gear. So I went and bought these cabinets today. I got 3 black cabinets, and I'm going to fill them full of my vintage test gear. I got meters and scopes and all sorts of funky things. I'm going to show you a couple little pieces today. And these are actually applicable to the Valve Studio. So they're really appropriate. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm on a mission here in the Valve Studio to get the Smektron record player mod finished. And the next step for me after the analysis was to actually take some measurements here on the bench. So what I want to use to measure the output performance of this, particularly the distortion, is to use an Android tablet that's running that sound analyzer program. And I want to just connect it directly to the output power transformer. So in order to do that, I need to have a voltage divider on the output transformer. So I have my load resistor, a 4-ohm load resistor, but I want to take the voltage down, so I need a simple voltage divider. So I was looking through my junk, and I found that I had this thing. Well, I knew I had this, I just didn't know where it was. So I went over to my storage unit, and I found this guy. And while I was there, I also found this one. Here's another one. Both of these are pretty much the same. This one's is 2K, and then here's 1K. So I don't even have to wire this up. I already got that done. While I was over there, I started picking up some other vintage gear because of what Kevin's comment was. He wanted to see some of this stuff. So I have 2 of these things. These are decade inductors. This is 1 to 10 Henrys. These things are monsters. I don't even know if they work. I'm sure they do. All this vintage test gear is like it's like a tank. It's just awesomely heavy, and it's everything I've ever pulled out of my storage unit works fine. Now I got most of this stuff at that estate sale of the century, or of a lifetime actually. All right, let's got this in decade inductors, and I got some of these things. These are decade capacitors. These are from Cornell Dubilier. These are pretty nice things. I got a few of those. I'm going to show you something else. And while I was over there, let me get it off my bench here. Now this thing I actually got at there was an auction here from a telecommunication manufacturer that actually was here in Montrose, and when they went out of business, everything was up for auction. I bought a lot of stuff there, and this is a HP 400E of AC voltmeter. So I got this bad boy out. This one goes down to 1 millivolt, which is minus 60 dB, which is great. Because that senior volt ohmist that I have only goes down to 1.5 full scale. May need this for something, I don't know, but I got it out, turned it on, it works like a champ. Got that going. And I want to show you this thing. Now this thing here, this is an interesting beast. I didn't even know what this thing was. I was looking around. Let me zoom in on this a little bit. This is a capacitor bridge. And it uses a wine bridge, which I'm going to have to do a little reading on. I kind of know what a bridge does, but I don't know specifically about a wine bridge or a Wheatstone bridge. It doesn't matter. This thing has got one of these magic eyes in it. So I found the manual for this at over there at that boat anchor site. and I ran this through my light bulb tester. So apparently, the way you do it, the manual doesn't really tell you how to use it. I guess you're supposed to know. It kind of tells you what the ranges of the switch are. And it tells you you can actually use this to test out continuity as well. But for a capacitor bridge, so you turn this thing on. I ran it through my light bulb current sensor, my current limiter, and it kind of worked fine. But here's that magic eye. Oh, you can barely see it. Now, let me turn off some of the lights in here. Hold on just a minute. Oh yeah, that's better. All right. So you set up the scale, and what I got out here is I got a 1 microfarad capacitor. You put that in, and the scale down here, 1 microfarad is going to be on the high scale. And what you do is you dial this in until you get the null. Oh, there it is. Can barely see that thing. It's going to be really dark in here. You can still get these tubes, by the way, this magic eye tube. Anyway, there we go. I'm on, it says about 0.9 on this thing right here. About 0.9, and then here's that. Let's see if you can see that thing. See it kind of, you dial in for the minimum there. So that's pretty cool. I don't know if I use this, but it works. All right, here's a 0.1. Now let's get this other one. So it goes down to, what does it go down to? Is that microfarads? Nanofarads? This thing will go down to 1 picofarad. That's pretty low. All right, this is a 0.22 microfarad. And that is going to be on the medium scale. Oop, look at that thing. It really got a peak right there. Looks like it's about there. And that is, right there, you can't see it because the knob's in the way, 0.2. Wow, look at that thing. This thing probably hasn't been turned on in 50 years. Lovely. This guy here. This is waiting for the apocalypse. This will work after the EMP pulse. Yes, it will. All right, here we go. Here's the last thing. I'm going to get this thing over here. And this thing is a beast. So remember, I went over to find a voltage divider, and I really found a voltage divider. Let me zoom back out here. I'm going to turn the lights back on. Hold on. Zoom this thing back out. Now look at this beast. This is a General Radio decade voltage divider. Look at this thing. This thing's a monster. Oh, look, I think I bought it for about $10. All right, so this thing here. So over here you have, it's basically a wiper. It's just like this thing here. Okay, it's a potentiometer, but it uses fixed resistors. But it'll go up to 230 volts. That's really nice. Okay, and it's 10K. So let's check this out. I got out my cheap ass Craftsman here. All right, let's get this guy up here. So I'll put this over here across this input here. See what it says. 9.97K. Awesome. So by dialing this in, you're basically setting where the wiper is. If you take this thing and you stick it over here on this side. Now let me get these wires out of the way for you. Okay, so we're on 400. So this is 398. Wow, that's awesome. So then you come over here, you go up like 7, 698, 7.3, 730. What does this last one do? 732. Okay, we're a little off. Probably this thing that's off. 735 and 737. So we're off by 0.02. How awesome is this? So I was moving these things around, and some of these are kind of dirty. So, like you open it, and they're kind of dirty. So decided to open it up, and I'm going to show you this thing here. This thing is awesome inside. Let me get this out of the way. Now this thing, I'm going to have to do some research on this guy. But this has got to be vintage, almost World War II. I took all the screws out, and I took this thing apart. I was like, wow, I wonder how this works. Curiosity is going to kill me. I want you to check this thing out. All right, first of all, this is a copper-lined wood box. That's awesome right there. And look at this thing. So the way it works is, I guess it has resistor banks on these top two, and by turning the knob, you actually are changing this value and this value at the same time. Now this is the interesting part. How they derive the resistors, they just wound them by hand. So check this thing out here. See if I can get this there. So these things are these are just copper wire wrapped around a form. So they created the resistor with actual windings. So this is a giant wire wound resistor. Look at that thing. Isn't this a thing of beauty? This belongs in a museum. Now these contacts are kind of dirty, and I don't actually know what to put on these. This is kind of gummy crap here. I'm sure it was some type of conductive grease, but now it's just nasty. And I don't want to actually put what is that stuff we use these days? I don't know what it is. Whatever everyone uses, I have a jar of it. I don't want to just put that on there and clean those out. So I got to do some research in this, and if you're an old timer and you know the answer to that, I do have some old timers in my bag of tricks here. I'm going to have to consult with them and find out what kind of contact cleaner I should use for this thing. But look at this thing. I got a bunch of these kind of things, these vintage gear. I got a bunch of things from well, you'll be seeing it here in the future. All right, well, let's see, what else do I have here? Put this away back over here, back on the shelf. Let me see. Last thing, I guess, is that auction for that telecommunication company that was here. I ended up buying all their parts because Bentley's from Albuquerque came up, and that's how I actually got associated with Bentley's. They come up and did all the auctioning for this, and when it got down to the parts, all the electronics that they had over there, they made telecommunication gear, so they had real high quality components. Like this whole box here, this is all they're all CDE parts, which is a Cornell Dubilier. This bag right here, this is 400 .068 at 600 volt caps. I can't even tell you what this would cost if you bought it new. Anyway, by the time this got to the auction, the only people that were there were the ham guys and myself. And I was buying so much stuff that day that I just kept buying. And I got whole racks of their raw components. So I have tons of resistors and trays of sockets and all sorts of stuff. Anyway, so this is what I got. And I'm going to use this when I'm going to use these caps for my when I do any work on these tube amplifiers. I go ahead and use the highest quality audio caps. Well, I don't know about audio. Well, I'm sure they're audio because they're telecommunication gear. So anyway, these are probably high-end caps, and we'll just take advantage of what I got. Try to sell the rest on eBay. All of that because I was looking for this. Well, there you have it. Little jaunt down memory lane. It's not my memory lane. This stuff was built before I was born. But isn't it cool? This is what they used to design electronics with back in the day, whatever the day was, probably the 40s and 50s. Okay, well that's it for today. Thanks for watching. This is the Valve Studio.